certainly want to be a zero emission fleet. I mean, at Sogo we've made some good strides already. We carbon offset the fleet with BP. But I think the industry's changed dramatically in the last 2 years. You know, if you look at the fact through COVID, the acceleration away from traditional diesel and petrol engines, initially to hybrid and then to electric. You know, our fleet is basically around 25% now. We can claim to be zero emissions just through pure electric vehicles, and the carbon offset with BP is helping. But ultimately our goal is that we change the vehicles every year. So if you look at an iPhone as an example, the technology keeps evolving, the battery life's getting better, the memory's getting better, and cars and vans are no different. So, you know, changing the vehicles regularly with customers, that brings down the CO2 because naturally manufacturers are producing cleaner cars every year. So we don't want to leave customers, whether you're a private individual or a fleet business, in the car that's producing higher emissions when there can be a cleaner one on the fleet. So clearly our business model is all around about driving that CO2 emissions down and being the greenest we can. Yeah, so mobility as a service, which is MaaS, is, you know, how is it going to evolve? I mean, we're in cars and vans today. Ultimately, do we want to be in other segments? Yeah, of course we do, because, you know, electric scooters, an example, maybe we go there, but I think the mobility solution and MaaS is basically the customers being on a subscription or a monthly price, and again, using whatever's going to be available to their business or their private needs at the time. So, you know, the old adage is people talk about, do you want a convertible for the summer? Do you want an SUV for the winter? You know, that's been around for a while, but I see, to be frank, the younger generation aren't going to want to own cars and vans. They clearly want to come in and out when they need it. So, you know, we've seen, again, I'll come back to COVID, how that's accelerated, and obviously we saw major city centres around the world being shut down. If you've got a car and you're stuck with it, as an example, for 4 years, you don't need it if you're suddenly working from home. So I think that mobility solution is just going to keep growing and growing, and we want to be at the forefront of that. Yeah, so the investment in technology for us is paramount because, you know, for a start, we want to own our own technology. If you look at some of the providers we started out with, you know, mobility hasn't really been there. People have spoken about it, but if you look at sort of traditional contract hire and leasing companies, if you look at the fact that sort of private individuals, small businesses have been in PCPs, PCH, there were systems out there developed on either side of the fence, but there wasn't one for a month-by-month mobility solution. So number one, we need to get that obviously to manage the fleet, and it's ever growing. The other example we've got is the customer, because the business has to be always about the customer, and the touch points are critical. So, you know, I think website, we've started off reasonably well, but as we get into what we call My Sogo, which is the app, how we interface with the customers, that's ultimately got to be it, because, you know, we want more engagements obviously with customers as we grow. That can't be always in a traditional way, so it needs to be iPhone technology, Android technology as well. And customers are, you know, they're looking for vehicles 24/7, we know that. So it's all about the interaction and touch point as quick as we can. And to be frank, to be the best in the business. Well, we're no different to anyone else when we look at how segments are going to develop. So, you know, let's just talk about the traditional car market. It's predominantly kind of been 55% fleet, 45% retail. But in that 45% retail, there's a huge amount of micro businesses, SMEs, you know, small, medium businesses. And the number's huge. There's just under 7 million businesses in the UK. So where do we want to be in terms of customer clientele? Everywhere, to be frank. You know, private individuals at the minute is sort of 30% of our business. We're reasonably strong with SMEs, and we're also strong with corporates. So I think if you look at the corporate space, what they've seen, as I mentioned before with the previous question, is they've seen the need to flex their fleet up and down. You know, as it started, as I said, through COVID, I don't want to keep talking about that, but through people being furloughed, they didn't know whether they were going to retain their employees or whether they were going to go up or down. So the flexibility has been key for them. Equally, again, you know, if we talk about small businesses, they're the heart of the UK. You know, so certain people want vans for a smaller contract period, some want for longer. So, you know, we really want to work with every segment, and private's equally important because, you know, the market's there. So we're not going to pick and choose where we supply vehicles to, or wherever MaaS ends up be. We need to be in every sector. So the ambitions for Sogo, I'm going to say the team wants to be the best provider in the UK. Simple as that. When I talk about the best provider in the UK, I think the agility part is reaction to customers. And being candid, if I look at some of the major fleets out there, the one thing they don't do is go back to customers, whether it's emails, whether it's phone calls. So we've got to get the basics right, which I think we're doing okay at. You can always do better. But the ambitions for Sogo is number one, to be the greenest fleet in the UK, because it has to be. Number two is to be the best customer service and provider in the UK. And number three, being frank, I want to have the best team in the UK. You know, we've made a great start. We've got some great people on board, and we want to ever keep changing and supporting them. And enjoyment, because if the team are enjoying it, the customers are going to enjoy the experience as well. So sincerely, I want Sogo just to keep growing and growing, but do it in the right way.